Hi, alternates. I cannot believe that we are on the heels of season 4 beginning. Actually, day 1 of the Florida versus Donna Adelson trial has officially begun. But today, Tabitha and I wanted to drop a special episode for you. It's a little bit of a preview slash prelude of this case. Now, everyone knows that Tabitha has her own show, true crime show called Housewives of True Crime. A few weeks ago, she had me on her show, and I told her the story of the murder of Dan Markel. And that is the entire reason why we are here with Florida versus Donna Adelson. Now, I do want to give you a note of caution. If you want to remain completely unbiased, you might want to skip this episode. However, if you are open to all the bias, then continue listening. All right, tomorrow, come back because we are starting with day 1 of Donna Adelson's trial, and it is going to be an interesting case. One more thing before we go. If you love the show, make sure you rate the show wherever you're listening. Right now, we are just a few reviews shy of 100 on Apple and Spotify, 100 reviews, that is. And we are just so excited. If we could just get over that 100 little hump, that would be absolutely amazing. So if you have a minute, go ahead and rate the show and leave us some feedback if you want. With that, let's get into this preview.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Housewives of True Crime.
Housewives.
Housewives. So we have our housewife.
I know.
Housewife.
Housewife.
House mom. We are here with Margot again. Thank you for joining me. And I'm super excited because Margot's actually telling the story today.
I'm really nervous. I just want you to know straight up, I am extremely nervous.
It's so funny because you do it every single week. So
I know, but it's so different when you're telling the story by yourself. You're just kind of in this flow, and it's, every podcaster who podcasts solo has kind of this rhymey kind of way that they tell the story. So it's going to be a little bit interesting to see how that flows today. But I'm super excited, and today's story is crazy.
Okay, good. Anything crazy going on? You had your last week of school this week, so.
Yep. So last week of school is done. I am almost in tears because my 3-year-old is now 4. Well, she's about to be 4, but by the time this comes out, she'll be 4. And she's actually going to be transferring out of daycare, preschool, and she's officially going to be going to elementary school for VPK. And I'm not quite sure if I'm ready for this because I've already seen the transition from 3 to 4, even in just the last couple of weeks, is so drastic.
Oh, they become like little people. I always say 4 is really kind of a pivotal age, especially when you have olders, right? Because they start really becoming like their siblings.
Mm-hmm.
They're not babies anymore. And it's crazy. Today was crazy for me because we're already in summer. And I signed up for camp, the one camp.
Chess camp.
Yes, chess camp. And my son, my youngest, woke up throwing up this morning. And I was like, oh my gosh, why? I did not have time for throw up in the morning.
Mm-mm.
Still like a baby. He didn't even make it to the bath. I'm checking to make sure he's not listening to me. But he just did not make it to the bathroom. Then he comes down in my bedroom and he was like, I just threw up. And it's on the floor.
Oh,
okay, awesome.
Oh, next time you got to tell him, listen, if you're going to throw up, just throw up on the bed. I don't know if your kids, I'm forever going to have that sheet, kind of that plastic covering. It's not plastic, but
yeah,
kind of the pee-pee pad I'm going to have that forever for my kids, because it really does save so much. It saves the mattress, it saves the floor. So just be next time he does it, you just be hey, just puke on the bed. If you're going to puke, just puke on the bed. It's so much easier to clean.
Just pull it all up and take it all. I don't know.
Yes.
He does not have that. So, but at least he doesn't have a carpet in his room. It's just wood. Thank goodness, because Usually I meant to put carpets under their beds, but then I was like, oh, forget it. When we moved, I was like, just, you can live on the hardwood floor. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, good. That was an easy cleanup then.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't so bad.
So was it like a stomach bug? Do you know?
I took him to the doctors and they were like, I think so. I don't know.
Fever? No fever?
No fever.
Oh, okay.
No.
Could be just a stomach bug.
Fever. So let's hope it's just a 24-hour stomach bug because I don't need it also going around the whole entire house. So
I know. So you need to walk around with like Lysol wipes and just wipe everything down.
Right.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's
buzzkill for my summer.
I know. Is he feeling better though now?
No.
Kind of?
No.
Dang.
No.
Dang. So he's gonna miss a few days of chess camp.
Yes. There's my well-earned money down the drain. Oh my God. Speaking of money, let's just talk about alternate really quick because did you like the $400,000? You are an attorney, so you can tell me, is this something that's like normal that a Commonwealth would pay a witness almost $500,000 for their testimony?
No. And I'm going to say this. The answer is not usually, because usually they have someone from like the police department who will do that accident reconstruction. But remember, what is it? Trooper Paul did one. And then trial one, he was the one, he kind of did his thing. And then for this trial, they didn't want to use him. So they didn't even introduce anything that Trooper Paul put in. You know what I mean? So they brought in this new team. But man, when I heard that on your episode, almost $400,000, I nearly passed out. But guess what? This is a good thing for the defense, because usually the government will kind of get it out in the defense's case that defense expert is being paid by the defense. In this case, the Commonwealth doesn't have that argument because their expert was paid $400,000.
Yeah. I mean, and if you guys have not watched the Karen Reed trial or gone to the alternate, here's a plug now. But that was just, that part of it was so mind-boggling to me. And then I think about that in cases that we do, like, I don't know what we're going to talk about today, but just in cases in general where there is a defendant that maybe doesn't have any money to really defend themselves. And so how much money do they get how much money is allotted to a defendant that has a public defender?
Right.
I can imagine it's not that much.
Mm-hmm. And, I don't know how the civilian sector works, but in the military sector, when the defendant wants an expert, they have to like ask the government to fund it. And it's always like pulling teeth to get an expert for X amount of hours or whatever it is. So I just know that it's crazy. Like, it's definitely crazy, like you said, for a defendant who does not have money to be able to afford to put up a defense that costs almost $400,000. I can't even imagine. That was just a portion of what. No, it's insane.
That's insanity. Now I want to know how much they paid all their witnesses. But anyway.
Well, how many experts did they have? It was just the ones from Aperture.
Yes. Ian Whiffen was not from Aperture, though, and that was their witness, too.
No, but Ian Whiffen, wasn't he with them? I don't want to say because I don't remember. Guys, I feel like it's only day 23, but it feels like day 1000 of this trial. So Whiffen, wasn't he with the Massachusetts State Police?
No. I don't know. Okay. I have to go back in my notes.
Okay. We have to go back and look.
Yeah. And then the brain surgeon,
an expert.
that guy, he must have been paid to come.
Oh, he was an expert and he was paid to travel. But remember, he was there for they paid for him to fly in, maybe like one overnight. And then he probably charged a lot of money for that 1 hour or 2 hours that he was on the stand.
Yes, hello, because he has to not do brain surgery, and you can only imagine how much he gets for brain surgery. So he's probably a couple $100,000 too.
Yeah. You guys, I want you guys to know that every day I wake up and I'm like, I cannot believe Tab made me do this podcast.
because it's like an everyday podcast. Like, just think about it, a daily podcast where we are, no kidding, like watching trial and then running a recap that, you know, kind of encompasses everything so that the listeners don't miss anything. So I just want you to know, Tab, like every day I'm just kind of like, I can't believe Tab made me do this. But I mean, honest to goodness, I don't think I've ever been this organized or kind of organized in my whole podcasting career. And I've been doing this for 5.5 years. So thank you, Tab.
Okay. Yes. I feel the same way. I'm busier than I've ever been in my entire life. But because I'm so busy, I have to be organized. Like I am scheduled to the max.
Yeah.
And we also do not get done. I didn't get done recording last night until after 10 o'clock. I was like, okay. I'm like, sorry, Damian, because we have Damian edits our alternate episodes too. And I was like, oh my gosh. So anyways, all right, let's get into our story today.
All right. Are you ready, Tab?
I'm ready.
Okay, so our story today takes us to Tallahassee, Florida. And honestly, I feel like you and I talk a lot about Florida lately. It's kind of like our obsession. Do you agree?
I would agree.
Oh my goodness. So Tallahassee is the capital of Florida with a population of 202,000 people. It's up in the Panhandle area and it's really close to Alabama. And the subdivision that I'm taking you today is Benton Hills. According to the internet, you know, the famous internet, Benton Hills is one of the most beloved neighborhoods in Tallahassee. So I know that you like to Zillow, and I did a little bit of Zillowing myself. And as of this recording, there are a few houses for sale in this specific subdivision. And the houses range all the way from $419,000 to $799,000. Now, that is a big gap. $419,000 is for a 4-bedroom, 1,800 square foot house, and the $799,000 will get you 5 bedrooms and 3,800 square feet. So the neighborhood looks real calm and quiet, and it has lots of greenery, and that's where 41-year-old Dan Markel was living in 2014. So who is Dan Markel? He was born in Canada in 1972, and he was exceptionally accomplished. Get this, he attended Harvard University for both his undergraduate degree and law school, and he even earned a master's in philosophy from Cambridge in between his studies at Harvard. So he went to Harvard, went to Cambridge, and then went back to Harvard. By his
he's a smarty pants.
He is. Can you imagine? Okay, so he's from Canada. So he not only, you know, went to these schools, but he got in from outside of the country. And, you know, I feel like that's kind of not as easy as people might think, you know?
Mm-hmm.
By his early 30s, Dan had become a rising star in academia. He joined the Florida State University College of Law faculty in 2005, and within just 5 years, by 2010, he had already earned tenure. So Dan specialized in criminal law, and he was well known for his sharp intellect. He wrote for prestigious outlets like The Atlantic and the New York Times, and he even founded a very popular legal blog. Colleagues described Dan as energetic and full of zeal, and his mother, Ruth, later recalled that Dan really had a very energetic type of personality, someone who embraced life with enthusiasm. So that was his professional life. Let me tell you a little bit about his personal life. In 2006, Dan married a woman named Wendy Jill Adelson. She was a law school graduate from South Florida. The two met through a Jewish dating site called JDate, and they hit it off. They began dating in 2009. So they were both Jewish. However, Dan followed the faith more closely. Now, I do want to just mention something real quick. Apparently, when Wendy was browsing through this dating app, JDate, her mom was actually looking over her shoulder, and it was her mom, Donna, who was like, oh, he's cute. And she was the one who kind of nudged Wendy to reach out to Dan. Now, I do want you to put a pin in this because the tide would one day change. So who is Wendy Adelson? Wendy grew up in South Florida, and she was born to her parents, Harvey and Donna Adelson. Wendy was the youngest of 3 kids, and she was the only girl. She had 2 brothers, Robert, the oldest, and Charlie, the middle child. Wendy's father was a well-known dentist and he started his own dental practice. And the Adelson kids, they were all very successful. Robert went on to become a doctor. Charlie went on to become a periodontist. And Wendy, well, she became a lawyer. Wendy had a master's from Cambridge, a law degree from the University of Miami, and this was really funny. She even published a novel in 2011. So, as soon as I read this in my research, I was like, oh, what book did she write? Right. So yeah. I found her book on Amazon, and it is titled, This Is Our Story. I don't want to get too sidetracked, but we can talk about it later. It has nothing to do with today's story, but some of the comments on Amazon for Wendy Adelson's book are brutal. I can't even imagine. So, all right. Dan and Wendy married in February of 2006 in Boca Raton, Florida, and it seemed like a perfect match. I mean, this was the type of couple who actually had a wedding announcement placed in the New York Times. That's a big deal. Do you know anyone who's done that?
No, but I think, well, maybe I do know. I don't know. I can kind of picture this couple because I've had friends that have also met on J-Date, and I just feel like they're kind of like foofy people, right? Like
they have money?
Like they have money, right? They go to Cambridge and they go to Harvard, and their family's very into making sure that all their kids are very successful. I mean, it's kind of this in the box situation.
Well, Tab, you are spot on. These are the exact type of people that we're talking about today. Okay, so after Wendy finished law school, the couple settled in to Tallahassee. That was where Dan was teaching at FSU, and Wendy, she actually joined him at FSU and she became a clinical law professor. They soon had 2 sons. Now, the media does name the boys, but I'm not going to here because, I don't know, I think that's kind of a little bit inappropriate. But just so you know, the kids were born back to back. One was born in 2009 and one was born in 2010. From the outside, the Markel Adelson family looked happy. But guess what? Underneath, there was trouble brewing. By 2012, about 6 years into the marriage, things apparently had deteriorated very badly. Later court documents revealed that Wendy was deeply unhappy in their relationship. It seemed that Dan could be very intense and I don't know, she liked to describe it as uncompromising. Traits that, that those traits made him an amazing scholar. But, maybe it made him kind of a difficult husband. In any event, Wendy liked to vent to her family about Dan. So when Wendy put it in her mind about wanting out of the marriage, her family was quick to assist. They really hated that she lived so far in Tallahassee, and they were eager to have her back in South Florida. And when I say they, I really mean Donna. Okay, so divorce sucks, but listen to what Wendy did. In September of 2012, Wendy filed for divorce. And while Dan was away on a business trip, he left his family. He thought they would be back. But Wendy packed up almost everything, including the kids, and she left the marital home, leaving Dan to come back from his business trip and walk into a mostly empty house. No. The only thing, yes. Isn't that, can you imagine that feeling? Don't imagine that feeling because it's awful. He probably thought like, oh my gosh, like, did someone kidnap my family and steal all my things? Like, that's what I would think.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Well, I'm going to tell you what he thought in a second, but she did leave something behind. Guess what it was?
Her wedding ring.
Nope. Even worse, I think. Divorce papers.
Oh, no.
Yep. So
he wanted her wedding ring because that was probably worth a pretty penny.
Oh, no. Oh, so that's funny you mentioned that because I think she ended up keeping the wedding ring or I think she did keep the wedding ring and it was actually one of his family heirlooms. So he ended up complaining about it. But yeah, no, she did not leave the wedding ring. That's the type of woman she was. But she left the divorce papers laying on the bed. I know. That sucks and stings and all the things. And Dan would later write in a court filing that he was completely blindsided by the divorce filing. His exact words were that it was a Pearl Harbor style separation.
Whoa.
Yeah, he did not mince his words. Oh. So what followed after this kind of sudden move out of the house and a divorce filing was a very contentious divorce and custody battle. And she filed in 2012, and that entire battle would last into the middle of 2013. Dan and Wendy's divorce was finalized in July of 2013, which honestly, that's not that bad because she filed in September of 2012, and the divorce was finalized by 2013. So it didn't like last a long time, but it was like one of those divorces that are just like kind of like fast and furious. You have two lawyers and they were just battling it to like the grave, right?
Yeah. Like literally to the grave. Are we literally
actually
getting into
literally to the grave. We'll see. Anyway, but so the divorce was finalized in July of 2013. But before that, do you want to take a gander at what the big contentious issue was for this particular couple? It wasn't the ring.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would think it was the kids.
Anything specific about the kids, like custody?
Yeah, that's what I would think it would be custody of the kids. If she's taking them to South Florida and he's living in Tallahassee, I mean, that's
Bingo.
A problem.
Bingo. Relocation. And you hit it spot on. She wanted to take the kids to South Florida, and he basically had built his life at FSU in northern Florida, and
Florida's a big state.
Yeah, and Florida is a big state, and it was just, really crazy. You might think if you're not from Florida, you might think like, oh, going from North Florida, Tallahassee to South Florida is not that bad. On paper, the drive is 6 hours, but it's typically close to 8 hours because of traffic. So it's rough, right? You're not going to be traveling this every single weekend or every other weekend, and that would be rough for little kids as well.
Yeah.
So Wendy was petitioning the court to relocate to South Florida, and Dan was like, hell no, you are not taking my boys. I want joint custody, and you're just not doing that. And he felt like, listen, these boys need to be close to their father, and I am a willing participant in their lives. You can't just pick them up and leave. And guess what? The judge agreed. In June of 2013, a judge denied Wendy's request to relocate with the children to South Florida. He basically said, like, you can go wherever you want, but the kids have to stay in Tallahassee with shared custody. So in essence, she was kind of trapped in Tallahassee, right?
Mm-hmm.
This was a significant victory for Dan, but it inflamed the tensions with the Adelson family. You see, Wendy's parents desperately wanted her and the boys back home in the Miami area, and they saw Dan as the obstacle. By all accounts, the Adelson family was very unhappy with Dan's refusal to let Wendy move. And the Adelsons, they were making Dan's life a living hell. So much so that in late 2013, early 2014, Dan, no kidding, filed a court motion to restrict Donna Adelson, who happens to be his ex-mother-in-law, from unsupervised visits with his son. Well, I know it seems odd, right? You're like, why did he do that? Well, Dan had his reasons. You see, he was claiming that Donna Adelson, aka Grandma, had been making disparaging remarks about him to his sons, basically trying to pin them against their dad. Now, that's insane. I mean, and I've heard of cases like that, but in this particular case, Dan is a lawyer, so he was just filing whatever motions he wanted, and apparently he had evidence to back this up. A hearing date for this request had not yet been set, but everyone was aware of Dan's filings, and they were aware of his filings because Wendy, no kidding, e-blasted it to everyone and their mother. Like, she was not keeping it a secret. She was so pissed that when he filed this, she sent it to like 12 different people, including her mother. But despite all the drama, the two co-parents tried to move on as best they could. And in the summer of 2014, Wendy was seeing a man named Jeff Lacasse, and Dan, he was actually also seeing a woman who lived in New York. The summer was in full swing in Tallahassee, but no one could have predicted the horror that was about to take place. Friday, July 18th, 2014 began like any other day for Dan Markel. The 41-year-old professor started his morning by dropping off his sons at daycare, and then he hit the gym. He then drove back to his home in the Benton Hills neighborhood of Tallahassee. He was pulling his black Honda Accord into the garage at around 11 a.m. He was actually driving and pulling into his garage and talking to someone on the phone when he commented to the other person on the line that someone was coming up behind him. You see, as Dan pulled into his driveway, another car pulled in right behind him. And then someone got out and walked right up to the car. Just then, 2 shots rang out as Dan slumped over in the driver's seat of his Honda. And the shooter, he jumped back into the car and was gone with the wind. Thankfully, both the person that Dan had been talking to and a close neighbor heard the gunshots and immediately called 911. Police rushed to the scene to find Dan Markel in his car. And not only was he in his car, but the engine was running and there were 2 bullet wounds to his head. But the crazy thing is, he was still breathing. No kidding. The report was that when the cops got there, actually his neighbor got there first. And then when the cops got there, they were talking to him because he was actually rocking back and forth and forward, completely out of it, girl. When I tell you that the description of Dan immediately after the shooting is just heartbreaking. I immediately was thinking, how much pain is this guy in? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And he's still he was still kind of coherent. Was he able to tell them what he saw?
He wasn't. He wasn't saying anything. He wasn't saying anything. All the person who heard the shots, who was talking to him on the phone, the person said he could hear was heavy breathing. So it was kind of the 2 shots. He didn't even know it was shots.
Breathing. He just it's labored breathing.
Yeah, labored breathing. Exactly. And the guy who's on the phone actually said he was hey, Danny. And then after he wouldn't respond, that's when he hung up and called 911. Mm-hmm. And the crazy thing is that did I already say this? But it took the authorities or the ambulance took them 19 minutes to get there.
Oh my gosh, that's so long. No, you did not say that. But that is
19 minutes.
Ridiculous amount of time.
Which is crazy because Tallahassee's a big city.
Yeah, there should be a fire station on every block.
I have no idea. It took them 19 minutes. So that was another thing that was shocking.
Yeah, I don't like that at all.
So he had been shot in the head, and it appeared that the shooter had fired through the driver's side window at close range because his doors were locked. And so this was completely what appeared, just even from looking at the scene, it appeared like an execution.
Totally.
Dan was rushed to the hospital, but despite doctors' efforts, Dan died the very next day, which was July 19th, 2014. Sadly, the vibrant father and scholar who had started his day like normal, he took his kids to daycare, he went to the gym, and all of a sudden he was dead, the victim of what appeared to be a brazen attack in broad daylight. Remember, it was 11 o'clock in the morning. That's really ballsy, don't you think?
Yes. And I mean, it's really they were waiting for him, which I'm okay, mother-in-law that has a lawsuit coming up, has, I don't know, dark web capabilities or something. She's a little bit more advanced than my mother-in-law.
Sopranos, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, right.
All right. Well, we'll see if they ever tie it back to Donna, right? So news of the shooting, of course, shocked this quiet community and it quickly made headlines. This wasn't, this was a professor, right? So he was executed in broad daylight. It made headlines. Nancy Grace was reporting on it, Court TV. I mean, everybody was reporting on this. Investigators from the Tallahassee Police Department immediately suspected that the attack on Dan was not random. For starters, Dan's keys were still in the ignition and nothing was stolen. So it didn't look like a robbery gone wrong. From the get-go, police believed that Dan Markel had been specifically targeted by his killer. Naturally, investigators turned an eye toward Wendy. I always say hashtag the husband did it, but if the husband's dead, the opposite can be said, right? Hashtag the wife 100%. Did it.
Yeah.
Especially after they learned that Dan's recent, when they learned about Dan's recent divorce and the recent court filings. Wendy Adelson was brought in first to basically let her know, like, hey, your ex-husband is dead or dying, but also to pick her brains about Dan, to check her alibi, to see if she knew anything. She was interrogated for hours. And I do want to mention that when she was told that Dan had been attacked and would likely die, because Dan didn't die right away, right? So they brought her in that very day that he had been shot. So he was still alive, but they were like, hey, he does not look like he's going to make it. And I watched her interview, and when they told her that, she cried, like really, really cried. It was clear that she was shocked. Now, some people are good actors. I don't know if this was acting. I'm not sure that we'll ever know if this was acting. But Wendy told investigators about her nasty divorce with Dan, but she said that they were co-parenting well despite their differences. When they asked her who could have done this to Dan, she said, listen, I have no idea. But then they were like, no, really, like, think really hard who could have done this. And that's when she said something weird. She said, well, listen, my family hates Dan, like hates Dan, but they would never do anything like this, which is a really weird statement to say. Don't you think?
Okay. So then I think that she didn't know. That makes me believe that she didn't know, and that she just said, like, my family really hates him, like, but they wouldn't do this. But in the
I see what you're coming at. I see what you're
almost at that instant. She was like, could they do that? No, they would never do that. Like, I can't imagine you thinking, it's the same thing that everybody, like this last case that, the poisoning case, when you were like, hey, why wouldn't that person say something when, like, she had told them before that she would poison the guy? Because you don't really believe that people are that capable of doing something like this. And so I think in the back of her mind, she's like, hey, my parents really hate this guy, but they would never kill somebody.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's funny you say that, because after she made this statement, she then says something even weirder. She says, well, maybe my brother Charlie, he one time made this really weird joke about hiring a hitman to take care of Dan. But then he told me that he would get me a TV instead because it was way cheaper than hiring a hitman. Excuse me, what? So what do you think about that, Tab? Like, that is insane. Like, if I don't know, because we're kind of morbid, but
well, then I think it's the brother.
But so you
mother. I mean,
and you think Wendy had nothing to do with it, huh?
Well, why would she be talking out loud like this? I think
and she's a lawyer. Remember, she's not just Joe Schmo from the street. She is an actual educated attorney.
Right. So either she's trying to cover up her tracks, like, real quick and pin it on her family, which, I mean, is
scandalous.
Yeah, totally. Or she is just real dumbfounded at the moment and just not actually thinking, like, through these things, which I think attorneys are trained to think through these things. I mean, you're my friend that's an attorney. All of my friends that are attorneys are like, you guys have this attorney mind all the time.
Except when something is this close to home. I think in the initial aftermath, it is really easy to just, I mean, we're all just humans, right? It doesn't matter what your education is, whatever it is. It's still very easy to just say things that just kind of like come out, right? So I mean, I don't know. I mean, I like where your brain's at. And honestly, I'm not sure that we're ever going to know the truth, but I don't want to give too much away.
Okay.
Okay, so after she makes this statement, where she basically is like, oh, maybe my brother, he did make this weird joke this one time. But then after she said it, she was like, no, my brother would never do such a thing. But once you say something.
So she's like, he's all right. I've already got the TV. So he definitely.
She did. She did actually get the TV. And we're going to talk about the TV. Yes. Oh, girl, you don't even know. At this point, she wasn't being necessarily interrogated. She was just being questioned. And so she's like, oh, my family, they hate him, but they wouldn't do this. And then she was like, well, my brother did make this weird joke one time, but he wouldn't do it. And then she was like, my mom, no, she wouldn't either. It was weird. It was almost like she was having an internal conversation, but like on the outside. You know what I'm talking about? Okay, so that's kind of what this was like. Wendy, after she kind of throws her whole family under the bus, she then began to offer up other possible suspects. And one of those suspects was her ex-boyfriend, Jeff Lacasse. They had recently broken up, but she was like, we recently broke up, but he saw how difficult Dan was and how poorly Dan had treated me. So maybe he did it thinking that would be helpful for me. She then said, well, I don't know, maybe someone who worked with Dan, maybe one of the students was upset about a grade that he gave. Like, at this point, she is thinking like an attorney. She's just rambling off names of people who she think might do it, right?
Yeah.
At some point, she's asked like about her alibi and what she was doing that morning at 11 a.m. And she says that at the time of the shooting, she was home having her brand new TV being repaired.
Okay.
Apparently, her brother had actually gotten her a TV and the kids break it. They actually end up interviewing the repairman and he's like, yeah, I was there repairing the TV, which is a little bit crazy, but I guess maybe the TV was still under warranty, which is why she would be getting the TV repaired. I don't know. I feel like in 2025.
Paid for it.
She paid to get the repair. No, there was in my research, it was a little bit unclear, but it was like her mother had set up. So apparently the mom was the one that bought the TV because Charlie, the brother, wanted to buy it, but he basically was like, Mom, you buy her the TV, I'll give you the money. So the TV was under Donna's name. So when it needed to be repaired, the mom was the one who had to set up the repair appointment.
Okay. You know, when you buy that extra warranty from like Best Buy, I'm sure that's what it was.
Yeah, maybe. So maybe they bought this warranty knowing something was going to go down. I don't know. Okay.
Knowing that she needed an alibi. Okay. So was she with the repair guy or was the repair guy there by himself? Okay. She was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, she was there. And the repairman, this is going completely off like what I had written, but I know the repairman did mention that she seemed really nervous, kind of like, like busy or like busybodied. But when they asked her like, hey, were you nervous? Whatever. She's like, no, I was just like being me, like it wasn't nothing out of the ordinary.
Every day of my life.
I know, right? Like if anyone ever asks, like, was she acting weird? It's like, yeah, she was just like excessively cleaning. Like that is my go-to for like anything. Like just whenever I have nothing to do, it's just like excessive cleaning the counter. Like it's, oh my goodness, I'm revealing too much about myself. So after they track down this repairman, Wendy, her alibi pans out. And they realize like, okay, Wendy could not have been the shooter, but, in these types of cases, the investigators weren't ruling her out quite yet. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, detectives canvassed the neighborhood and they gathered surveillance footage from all the nearby cameras. Within days, they got a clue. A neighbor's security camera captured a silver green, I think it was called mica green, and that's the name of the color. It's a mica green Toyota Prius, and it was speeding away from the area of Dan's house right around the time of the shooting. This stood out because few people in this particular prestigious neighborhood drove Priuses, and witnesses reported seeing a very similar car randomly hanging around in the days prior. When authorities pull footage of the parking lot of Dan's gym, Premier Gym, I believe it was called, they saw something else. When Dan drove into the parking lot of the gym right after 9 a.m., 2 hours before he was murdered, Dan was being followed by a green silver Prius. Now, this is so intense because Dan gets out of his car, he goes to work out for about an hour, and when he gets back into the car and starts to drive off, the Prius begins to follow him out of the parking lot. It was apparent to the investigators that Dan had been targeted. The Tallahassee PD released an image of the suspect vehicle and urged the public to help identify it. That Prius was the biggest clue they had, but until they got any more leads, they were kind of just stuck. After Dan passed, FSU College of Law held a memorial service for him in September of 2014. They eulogized his contributions and they mourned the senseless loss. Dan's parents and sister flew in from Canada, grief-stricken, and really, they were there demanding justice. For months after the murder, the case languished with no arrest. But eventually, they got a lead about the Prius. It turned out that the Prius was a rental car, and it was tracked back all the way to Miami, Florida. This was a huge lead. The killers had rented a car in Miami, traveled all the way to Tallahassee to kill Dan Markel, and then they brought the car back. Investigators traced rental records and cell phone pings, and they identified 2 Miami men who had been in Tallahassee on the day that Dan was shot. The 2 men were Sigfredo Garcia and Luis Rivera, and at least one of those men had a connection to the Adelson family. And that connection would begin to reveal the cracks in the Adelson family. By June of 2016, the authorities were closing in on the 2 men they considered the hired hands responsible for Dan's murder. So how were these men connected to the Adelsons? I'm sure you're wondering that, Tab. Sigfredo Garcia, he was a small-time criminal from Miami, and he had an on-again, off-again relationship with a woman named Katie Megbanua. In fact, he was the father of her 2 kids. And Katie was Charlie Adelson's girlfriend.
Wait, hold on. I'm confused. Hold on. He had an on and off relationship with Katie, who was also dating Wendy's brother.
Yes.
Okay.
Ding, 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 ding.
So it is the brother.
Well, we shall see.
or hold on. I think the brother gets funded by the mom all the time. So the mom funded the TV, the mom funded the hitman.
Well, you know what? You are thinking just like the investigators, because when they made that connection, this was the big eureka moment, right? Catherine Megbanua was the link between the hired killers and the Adelson family, which is crazy. And this guy, Rivera, the other suspect, he was, we'll learn in a few that he was the getaway driver. He had no connection to Katie or the Adelsons. He was just a friend of Garcia, but Rivera was actually known to be a very dangerous guy because he was the leader of a South Miami gang.
Scary.
Scary.
Also, by the way, it's kind of weird. Like, you're like dating this girl and you're like, hey, you're like dude that you get on the side you have the 2 kids with. I know he's not like, straight and narrow. So you think he'd help my family out? You would actually think that guy would be like, no, I'm not freaking helping your new boo out.
Right. But, I feel like, people can be bought.
I mean, we just talked about that with this Karen Reed trial and $400,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Money.
And, money is money. And I mean, it wasn't necessarily chump change in this case, but I'll get to that here in a minute. But of course, so before investigators decided to show their cards, because they didn't have like a ton, they placed wiretaps on a few phones. But by this point, it had been over 18 months, right? He was murdered in July of 2014. By this point, it was early 2016. And even with the wiretaps, it had been over 18 months and authorities had to get the suspects talking about Dan's murder again, right?
Yeah.
And how did they do it?
They took the wire. That's what they call it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, you are so smart, Dab. That's not actually what I have in my notes. They called it something else, but here is what they did. In April of 2016, the FBI conducted what is known as a bump operation. Or in Tab's world, they tickled the wire. So in this bump operation, an undercover agent approached Donna Adelson, who was Wendy's mother, on the street in Miami. I think she was on the way to go get the boys or something like that. The agent, who was posing as an accomplice of the hitman, handed Donna a newspaper article about Dan Markel's murder with a phone number and a message, essentially signaling that someone knew her family was involved and they wanted money. In fact, the entire interaction is caught on video. And take a listen.
Excuse me, Mrs. Adelson? How you doing? Just want to give you this. Listen. You're scared. No, don't be scared. Listen, just want to let you know that we know that your family has been taking care of Katie and her friend Tuco for quite some time after your problem up north has been resolved. And I want to let you know that my brother, he's incarcerated. He helped your family with this problem you guys had up north. And we want to make sure that he's going through some rough times. And we want to make sure that you take care of what he's going through the way you're taking care of Katie and Tuco.
So this bump operation was a form of fake blackmail intended to spook the Adelsons into talking among themselves about the crime.
Yes.
And guess what?
This is exactly what tickle the wire means. Like, basically, you put a little tickle out there so you can see if they're going to start talking, and hopefully they do.
Mm-hmm. And this is kind of like when I envision this particular case, I envision, that like investigative board with like all the pieces and the wires. And this is exactly what that is, right? They're wondering like, who is the first person that Donna Adelson is going to call?
Oh, yes. Charlie.
And guess who it is?
Wendy.
No, that would be so good, girl. That would be a different story for a different day.
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh. Oh my God. You just rocked my world right now. No, she did not call Wendy. She actually called Charlie. Yeah. During the phone call, she was very vague. She wanted to talk in person. And I'm not sure. I listened to so many wiretaps and things while I was researching this case. So I'm not sure if it's this wiretap. I do think it is, or if it was another one. But she says something like they want $5,000 for the TV. These people and their damn TVs.
That's what the name of the hit was. It wasn't really a TV. It was actually like getting rid of him was called the TV.
Exactly. Clearly, the TV was code for a hit.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So in addition to this call, the next day, he does make a call that day, but the next day on April 20th, 2016, Charlie Adelson and Katie McBanua met at a restaurant called Dolce Vita in Miami. Unbeknownst to them, the FBI was watching and their conversation was actually being recorded. I'm not sure how they did this, but I know they got close enough where they were able to drop something that recorded the conversation. But listen, it was a crowded place and the audio was awful. In the muffled recording, Charlie and Katie can be heard discussing the recent bump on his mother, and they're speculating about what the blackmailer knew. Charlie was speaking in somewhat coded language. He made some telling statements. At one point, he said, quote, "If they had evidence, we would already have gone to the airport," end quote. He also noted that the black girl, and put a pin in that because this airport situation will come up at the end, right? Yes, exactly. That's exactly what he meant, right? I mean, he's basically saying like, if we knew they had information, we would not be sticking around to let them arrest us.
Yeah.
He also noted that the blackmailer hadn't mentioned any names, which led him to say, like, that makes me think they only know part of the story. And at one point during this conversation, they even actually start like hypothesizing, like, what if this is the FBI?
Okay.
I love dumb criminals. Like, do you love dumb criminals? Because
it's amazing. I mean, this is how we get all these people caught, right? And then you actually know that they're the ones that did it. So, yeah.
that they're involved.
Yeah.
Because if not, if you feel like you're getting blackmailed and you were not involved, like, wouldn't you want to go to the cops?
Yes, 100%. And by the way, I love, like, this is the type of work, if I was in the FBI, this is what I would want to be doing. Like, I would want to wiretap everybody, and I'd want to sit there and listen and try to come up with ways to, like, do that. Like, I would have loved to, like, dress up and be like, here's your newspaper, fucker.
But then you'd be stuck listening to a whole bunch of audio that sounds like this. You know what I mean? Like, that is, whenever I listen to that, I'm always like, oh my gosh, I cannot imagine having to listen to all that audio and then decipher, like, what the hell they're saying.
I know. When I did an interview with the FBI guy, and I was like, my friend Josh, and I was like, okay, so when you did stakeout, like, what do you do? And he was like, literally, we sit in the car listening and, like, waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And it's, like, so freaking boring. So.
No, okay, just imagine. Okay, so first of all, when we do the alternate, all the sidebars where we're just literally staring at the ceiling fan. That's exactly what it would be like.
Yeah, it would be.
You're just, like,
so
staring
true.
at the ceiling fan.
It's so crazy, actually, how, like, little information comes out of a whole day of testimony. Because
oh my gosh, it is
like,
insane.
Same question 5 different ways.
No.
Yeah.
As they were listening in on this conversation, it was clear to them that Charlie was analyzing the threat, and he was also reassuring Katie and, you know, maybe kind of giving himself a little pep talk that authorities didn't have the full picture and that they were safe.
Okay.
But prosecutors would later argue that the very way that Charlie talked about the situation, you know, kind of referencing the evidence vaguely, suggesting paying off the blackmailer. I think he said something like making a one-time charity payment and exhibiting knowledge of the crime. They would argue that this was incriminating. The Dolce Vita tape captured Charlie essentially dancing around the subject of a murder, careful not to explicitly say it, but implying a lot. But the FBI tape and the wiretaps didn't immediately lead to arrests of any of the Adelsons. It was frustrating. They had these suspects practically on tape, or at least this one suspect, right? But the audio quality of the meetup was very poor, and the conversation was very oblique or vague, or like, you can't just present this and be like, this is the smoking gun, right? But while they couldn't get the Adelsons, it was time to move in on those 2 hitmen. On May 24th, 2016, investigators actually interviewed Garcia in an attempt to get him to talk. Now, this is Sigfredo Garcia.
Is this the guy, the getaway guy, or?
No, this is the baby daddy.
The baby daddy. Okay. He's the
Like,
guy, the trigger puller. I would have gone with the getaway driver, trying to get him to talk so that you can give some sort of plea to that guy so you can actually get the trigger guy. But that's just...
It seems like you have done this before. Have you done this before? I'm just kidding. Okay, well, wait. So they bring him in.
Okay.
And they're like, hey, do you know anything about this guy, Dan? He denies everything. He actually even claims, like, hey, Tallahassee, like, I've never even been to Tallahassee. That day, they let him go. And I always wonder if this is, like, one of their tactics. They don't always do this, but I have seen that sometimes they do this. They will let the person go. And honestly, I think they did this probably to get more wiretaps, to see who he would call afterwards.
Yeah, because they still have them wired. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they let him go, but the very next day, he was arrested on charges of first-degree murder for the death of Dan Markel. Now, as you can imagine, the news of an arrest in Dan Markel's case was explosive news. But the Tallahassee PD tried to keep much of the details under seal. They did hold a press conference to announce Garcia's arrest, but within a week of that arrest, those sealed documents became unsealed, and they revealed an accomplice by the name of Luis Rivera. The documents also laid out a connection between the two hitmen and the Adelson family. So as you can imagine, you have true crimers like us, and they're reading this and they're like, wait a minute, what? The Adelsons are connected to this, but they haven't been arrested, right? This was a dramatic development. It wasn't every day that you see the victim's former in-laws, who are prestigious, by the way. They have like this whole dental practice in South Miami, be implicated in a contract killing.
Yes.
Can you imagine the news? And the thing is that this news spread literally across Florida. You have Tallahassee news reporting like there has been an arrest in the local killing. And then you have like the South Florida reporting like, hey, these people have not been indicted or arrested, but they have been implicated in a contract killing. It's a huge news.
Yeah. So we are going to actually stop right here because we're going to make this a two-parter in case you all listen on your commute that, an hour is good. And then we are going to pick right back up. So don't worry. It's a two-parter, but they're both coming out on the same day. So I know people get real frustrated with two-parters sometimes. So you'll get both of them right back to back. But we did not want to miss all the info.
Yes, I'm sorry, guys, that this is a two-parter, but you trust me, this is one of those cases, and it is still ongoing. And you'll learn more about that in a little bit, but you're not gonna, there's so many details here that even after we're done talking, we still talk about it. So
yeah,
come back and listen.
Okay. Yes. So don't miss the second part because that's when it gets even better, in my humble opinion. And if you want to wait on it for a little bit, then, you can do that too. And we will catch you on part 2. Clink, clink.
Clink, clink.